She grew up believing she knew who her father was until one document, one secret marriage license, turned everything upside down. But what she found next was far beyond anything she imagined. Stay with me for this incredible story of truth, courage, and connection. My name is Lorie, and I'm a search angel with DNAngels. Today, I want to tell you a story about courage, about what can happen when you finally take that leap of faith, even when you're scared of what might happen next. This is the story of Holly. Holly was born in 1977, so almost 48 years ago. She grew up with the understanding that her father was the man listed on her birth certificate, the man her mother had always told her was her dad. And for most of her life, she never questioned it. Why would she? But one day, while going through some old family papers, Holly found something strange, a marriage certificate her mother had with another man, a man she had never heard of. They had applied for a marriage license in March of 1977. That marriage never happened. Shortly after, her mother married who she always thought was her biological father. And then Holly was born in December of 1977. So confused, Holly went to her mother and asked her about it. Her mother's reaction? Instant denial. She told Holly that she was imagining things, that she was crazy. That's nothing. Your father is your father. So Holly dropped the subject because she didn't want to continue hearing the lies. And sadly, that's a story we hear far too often at DNAngels, where mothers continue to hide the truth, burying secrets under decades of silence. Why do they do it? Well, sometimes they do it out of shame. Remember, back a couple generations ago, um, you know, there was shame if you got pregnant outside of a marriage. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's just habit. But whatever the reason, it leaves their children searching for answers long after people are gone. So Holly decided it was time for her to find out the truth for herself. And that's when she took a DNA test and came to DNAngels. She shared the name of the man from the marriage application with me. We'll call him Tim Crawford. And she asked if we could help determine if he was her biological father. So once we started building her tree, the DNA matches told the story almost immediately. Every one of Holly's closest matches pointed back to Tim's parents, meaning the father had to be one of their sons. But Tim didn't have any full siblings. He was an only child to this man and woman. And that made the conclusion very clear, crystal clear, actually. Tim Crawford was Holly's biological father. It was the confirmation that Holly needed, not just a name, but proof. And her instincts were right all this time, regardless of what her mother told her. But really, that was only the beginning of her journey, because finding a name isn't always the same as finding family, right? Now, sadly, Tim had passed away about 5 years earlier in 2020. Now, that realization hit hard. She'd missed the chance of getting to meet him. But then came a spark of hope, because during his life, Tim had married and raised 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. And that meant Holly had 4 half siblings. 4 people in this world who shared her DNA. And they might be her connection to her father, the father that she never got to know. So the question became, should she reach out? Well, at DNAngels, we always talk about that moment, that the crossroads between fear and hope. The truth is, you'll never know what could happen if you don't try. You know they exist, but they don't know you exist. sometimes you could just wait around and hope one of their kids or grandkids takes a test one day. But what if you take that leap of faith? So Holly thought about it for a few minutes and then she said, "You know what? I'm going to do it. I just have to try." So she sent a message to one of the daughters. And believe me, that takes a lot of courage just to do that. But she kept it short, gentle, just sort of easing in just enough, to sort of open up that door of conversation. And she said, "Hi, I'm looking for so and so. Do I have the right number?" Well, she didn't hear back right away. And now she was sort of motivated. So she said, "Let me try another one of the sisters." So she tried texting that number, and it turns out that the number actually belonged to the sister's husband. And as luck would have it, he was kind and open about the whole thing. And he responded right away. And he said, "This is her husband, but I'll make sure that she gets in touch with you." So in the meantime, Holly sort of started a conversation with him and sent him a photo of herself and her children and told him a little bit about what was going on. Um, and just to sort of show that she was willing to provide her information. And so that's what she did by sending those photographs. And when he saw those photographs, his reaction was immediate. He said, "Wow," he said, "one of your sons looks exactly like Tim. And honestly, you look just like one of the girls." So for Holly, that was everything. For the first time in her life, someone actually recognized her, saw her resemblance to a family she'd never met. Still, his wife, this man that she was talking to, his wife, the daughter, she was still pretty skeptical. And honestly, like who wouldn't be in this day and age, when a stranger suddenly contacts you and says, "Hey, I might be your sister," it can take a little time to process. And of course, we always have to worry about scammers out there. So it's always a good idea to be, tentative, cautious. So when she told me that, I sent her a copy of that marriage record, one showing the one that showed Tim and her mother had once been preparing to marry. Well, that same night, yes, that very night, Holly ended up FaceTiming with all four of the siblings, all four of her half siblings. Now, by bedtime, they had had a wonderful conversation, breaking the ice and getting to know one another, filling in 47 years of missing memories in one unforgettable evening. She went to bed that night with a full heart and a family. And I'll never forget what she told me the next morning. She said, "I was so fearful of rejection, but instead I was welcomed with open arms." If Holly hadn't reached out, none of this would have been possible. None of this would have happened. She would have gone the rest of her life never knowing them and them never knowing that she even existed. It's a reminder that yes, reaching out is risky. Sometimes there is rejection. I've seen it probably as much as I've seen acceptance. But if you don't try, you'll never know which one you'll get. You'll never know what could have been. It's sort of like that high risk, high reward scenario. And Holly's courage gave her more than she ever expected. Three of her new siblings live within just a couple hours of her. And so they're planning to meet up in person soon. And that bond, you can tell, is already starting to grow. And even more amazing, after Holly shared her story, the siblings told her something that made her even more emotional. Apparently, years ago, their father, Tim, had told his best friend that there might be a child out there somewhere, that the woman he dated wouldn't let him be a part of the baby's life. And he was never able to find that woman. When women get married and change their name, it's very easy to lose contact and to not be able to find the woman. And that's what happened in this case. But he never really stopped wondering. And so now, after all these years, that child has finally found him through his family, through DNA, and through courage. Holly never got to meet her father in this life, but she found the next best thing: his children, his legacy, and his love living on through them. So reaching out can be scary. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. It is scary. But Holly's story proves that beautiful things can happen when you do. Holly's leap of faith gave her 4 new siblings and a sense of belonging that she'd been missing her whole entire life. So if this story touches your heart, leave some holly leaves, or really any Christmas symbol, in the comments to show your support for everyone brave enough to reach for the truth. And don't forget to hit that hype button so more people can see stories like this. Thank you so much for listening to my story. And until next time, take care and please tell the truth.